Okay, let's get started.
I'll
I'd
get
like
you
to
on
call the Fire Board meeting of March 20th to order. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chris, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Albert?
Here.
Beckman?
Here.
Fox?
Here.
Verplank?
Here.
And North.
Here. And Scott Phelps is excused and terrific with notice. Could you turn off your cell phones and try not to text during the meeting, as it's going to be open meeting? Could we have approval of the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll support.
Is there discussion? Greg, did you want to add something to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm requesting permission under Chief's comments, item 9D, 9 Delta, to add just a comment about MDOT Bridge, which will have an impact on all of us.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion with that change.
All right. Steve?
I'll support.
Okay, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on, could I have approval of the February 20th minutes?
I'll move we approve the meeting minutes from February 20th, 2023 as submitted.
I'll support.
Okay. I have a motion by Fox and support by Aldrich to approve the minutes of the February 20th meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Public comment?
Come on, Kyle, say something. You saw public as Kyle.
Public comment. You have anything to say?
No.
Okay.
He wants his allowance raised.
That's good. Because it's scary when he says stuff.
Okay, can we have requests for payments?
Since Scott's here, not here, I'll make a motion to pay the payments of $150,406.26.
Second.
Fourth, whatever.
Okay, I have a motion by Beckman and a second by Fox to pay the bills. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, roll call vote, please.
Beckman?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Verplank?
Yes.
And North.
Yes.
Passes with 0, Madam Chair.
Okay, financial report, please.
Okay, the finances. On the revenue side, I've collected probably in the mid-90s from the two cities and the township, and the rest of the money will be coming forward from the county treasurer once they settle the rolls and they're getting there. So all the money in the far right-hand column, the dollar amounts, that's basically guaranteed. It's just the whole thing, the checks in the mail. Then the rest of the inspection fees, cost recoveries, grants, donations, all those with the brackets or the parentheses around, that means we have more than what originally budgeted. So revenue side, we're in good position. And the expenses, overall, the only thing that's going to start getting very tight is the payroll, the overtime and the calls. But we have no control over the calls, the 911. And I think the only thing really over the balance line item is the general insurance and the new truck that we paid with $2,000 more than the original bill. In the long-term capital, that overage, we'll have a budget adjustment to get that in line because there's a couple dollar amounts we spent on a couple of these large, with the exercise grant, there's a couple grants.
There's still a lot of money that hasn't come in from grants too.
We spent the money, but we're going to be getting reimbursed from these federal grants on those. So I think we're fairly, we still got another, 90 days, about 100 days left in this fiscal year, so that call, we have no control of the people calling in, so, or the freeway cost of being out there, so. But I think we should be in decent shape, even though we know we paid for that truck in full this year, so we don't have any debt, but we used up a lot of our cash, so. I don't know if anybody has any particular questions, or?
Any questions, comments? All right, nice job,
So
Pete. Thank you.
probably next month we'll have, probably start working on the budget, because I know, I have all the numbers from the township board review, they're done, Sogdick's done, and I have an email waiting for the Douglas assessor to get me what the 23, taxable value is going to be, so. So we'll have it, right now, between the Sogdick City and the township, it's $140,000, leaving it 2.2 mils is $140,000 more revenue, because the taxable value basically went up 5% this year, so.
Okay, so that should cover payroll.
On that cash position, as that starts to be refilled or restored
Yeah.
in pieces, about at what rate does that, does that take?
To get, I mean, the
I
rate
mean,
at.
I'm now looking at getting back to the pre.
Oh, that, no, I mean, that took us 5 years, 6 years to get, that basically, what do we have, $800,000 for that truck, how we got all done? Not to borrow, so it took, we were putting away probably $100,000 to $130,000 a year, the revenues, the expenses were less, about $100,000 to $130,000 a year. I mean, you go back to the budgets, and so it takes about $100,000 to get to $800 to pay for that truck, or what was it, like $675 just in timing. We probably had another, $40,000 and stuff for it? 20.
And that'll be a budget item
Whatever
going
the next,
forward.
yeah, going forward, we need to start, socking it away so we're not in a position to have to go to the bank or borrow money for it, so.
We pay for that over two different
Yeah, I think one year we paid for the chassis, then to, what was it, Spartan, and then we paid it to Spencer.
$285 for, $265 for the
Yeah.
chassis, cab when it came in,
Yeah,
then the final panel.
I think it was right around, about $700 altogether.
Your comment?
No, just what we're living with is the unfortunate fact that we had no capital improvement plan for, 40 years, and to catch up with, everything has a life expectancy in the fire service for held to unfunded mandates. Hose, air packs, you're talking, air pack now is almost $10,000, where they were $3,500. We just ordered a pair of fire boots for one of our firefighters, and $445.
Are they snakeskin? Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
The embroidery.
Yeah, okay.
They're
So
down
we're-
here.
That's a lot.
So how many air packs does fire district own?
26.
Yeah, we pared it back, it's per seat, but we pared it back, and we have a couple on the boat, and so we used to have like 35, 36. But our neighbor is just getting air packs, and their quote is just under 10,000.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so everybody comfortable with finance report? Okay, moving on to
When
fire.
do we have to budget?
Pardon?
When is the budget, when do we work on that, is it the fall?
No, the budget's due, the last of May, right?
Yeah, so
Okay, so,
So we probably really need to have we'll put something together to bring to the board in April and go through it, and then we gotta give it to the 3 units to have them all, everybody, the Douglas, Saugatuck, and the township to approve them, so.
But it remains an issue whether the three jurisdictions view the budget and see the budget, but approve this.
Well, what we heard from the attorneys is, you send the budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, you send the budget to the units, and they have to either approve it or make recommendations, but they can't just sit on it. So, it's either an approval or make recommendations for their approval. So that's where we landed with the attorneys last year, isn't it right, Greg? All right.
So my question, what's the recommendation? Lower the
Yeah.
millage or give everybody a 10% pay cut or?
They can recommend whatever.
Well, I mean,
And
that's a
Also doesn't
big.
mandate any action on a
No.
recommendation.
Yeah.
No.
Just
We'll
just
be
forces
fine.
the recommendations to be official and communicated.
Right.
So there's a record of them as opposed to just, I think, you think.
We don't have to go through what we did last year.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed.
All right, so moving on to fire chief comments?
Yes, up on the screen, we have Eric's great work, a dashboard essentially, and it shows you that in February, we closed out the month with 59 calls, just a little higher than 2022 at 57 calls. Response times are great, anything under 6 minutes is extraordinary in the wintertime as well. Everything else is pretty true. There's nothing that's really out of the ordinary there, so unless there's any questions, we'll stick with the dashboard. Eric, do you have anything you want to?
No.
Eric Kirchhoff, sorry. Times of the days fluctuate, or times of the week fluctuate. As you know, our busiest times are during the day. That has not changed. Some really unusual calls this month. One very extensive carbon monoxide call with a happy turnout, but very complex.
Was that at Jim Sullivan's house?
We can't say that.
Oh, camera.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. No, Mr. Sullivan was just, they were just terrific. Yes, it was
Yeah.
his house. We heard about it too.
Oh, thank
From
goodness.
others. Yeah, they did all the things right. They called us and all that, and everyone is very lucky. Worked out, but it was very difficult to determine the cause on that. So, but we did.
You determined a cause?
Yep. Yep. So they were very gracious.
A cause that's been rectified.
Oh yeah. Jim is a man of action. He took care of the problem. Nothing else to share with you other than, you've got some things to look forward to. And
Can you
Yeah.
go back a couple?
I can,
That one.
go with,
I still think that's one of my favorite ones, to show the communities what's being, what they're paying and how much they're using.
Interesting, take a look at this 2020 census. 865.
Yeah.
Township, 3,400 in Douglas. Reduction in growth.
I should know everyone in Saugatuck by their first name.
That number's getting smaller and
Tell me
smaller.
about it.
Boy, it is.
Except in the summer.
Yeah. Anybody that's left is getting older and older.
Really?
Some more than others.
Because kids can't buy here.
nope.
The alternative sucks. So,
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
It is a very good slide. Next up, we have the fire fatal statistics for the Michigan Fire Inspector Society, and that is also in your,
Sorry, did I do it backwards?
I'm sorry, yeah, okay. So, yeah, you've got unfortunately 33 deaths out of 32 fires, and a sharp increase in fires year to date, slight increase in deaths. We hate to see any amount of fires there, but a very good statistical, particularly for, Kathy may have not been exposed to this, but the cause, the origin, where it is, the demographics, really great data that the Inspector Society charts. Chris and I are on that, belong to the Inspector Society, and they're just a fabulous organization.
so why do you think the fire statistics are going up, the fire?
It's cycles, it's just all cycles. You'll have a rash of fires and then it just stops. Last month it was up. fire deaths. But, you know, a lot of people think, look at reported areas of origin. Kitchen, most people think the kitchen is where the fire is. It's not, it's the living rooms. And unfortunately, 4 of our calls are related to smoking.
Which can include a variety of substances.
Correct. Not just tobacco.
Well, I would think that the tobacco has gone way down.
You would
where-
think.
Where other forms of entertainment go.
What's also surprising, if you look at the center row at the bottom, alarm status, no working smoke alarms, 41%. That's not good. Especially like in our area, we give you smoke alarms, we install them. 10-year, no battery smoke alarms are sealed, and carbon monoxide. It's part of our community risk reduction process.
I don't know how easy it is to manipulate the data, but I would just wonder, the 44% related to smoking, and Jane's point, disproportionate percentage of that percentage is probably marijuana nowadays.
We're gonna be there.
And what percentage of those deaths, smoking related to marijuana, had no working smoke detector? Because I think there might be a situation, I'm trying to remember back to my parents' youth, but where there's enough smoke in the room that you wouldn't want, you know, on a regular basis, you wouldn't want a working smoke detector. So, you know, particularly if you're 22 years old and you're going to live forever anyway, you take the damn thing down.
Reminds me of a Cheech and Chong movie.
We're living in a Cheech and Chong movie, I think.
Greg, what, you know, the other thing that drives me nuts at my house are candles. Could they tie in candles with smoking, or is that a separate cause?
Like electrical fire, you know, they don't loop it in. I think we'll ask the Inspector Society, the principal people will be there, about the whole marijuana versus tobacco. Candles are a big thing. Dryer fires are another huge thing that either you don't hear about them, or the amount of dryers you don't see, but the potential for dryer fires is very real. But heck, we talked about smoke alarms for 30 years. And it's surprising that you can buy them for $5. One of the problems is people trip them and then they take them apart. It's too bad to see that. It should be 4%. But candles, yeah, I have that problem with my wife.
How about ages?
The ages, well, we're not at a good age for fire dust. So look at,
Bottom left corner. It's more broke out on their website too, by
Yeah.
ages.
I was gonna say, that's some pretty broad
Yeah.
stroke right there.
more detail on the website.
I know last time I talked to Kyle about it, that the smoking is primarily actually cigarettes, not marijuana. And it's mostly the elder population of the people who still smoke cigarettes. And they're sitting in their recliner and fall asleep with a cigarette, and it touches the recliner and off it goes.
And home care,
Yep,
people are staying home on oxygen.
yeah.
We're at 9%. That's a lot.
My dad was smoking Chesterfields on oxygen to the very end.
Oh my God, it's like to live on the edge.
It's kind of a flamethrower type thing. It's too bad.
I test the alarms in my kitchen quite often.
We know.
And they work.
Next up, the Department of Fire Prevention monthly report. Activity, you can see what really stands out is fire plan review hours, and then the one we'd really like to see up there is that column to the right, fire prevention educational hours. Most of that would be at our elementary school with our staff.
Is that, for a synopsis of that experience with the smoke, you know, crawling out of the room and all the rest of that, is that on our website?
Not yet, we're waiting for Stephanie to approve the pictures that we can use.
Because that's impressive.
Yep. She was working on putting together their newsletter, and then was gonna send back pictures that we took that we can use, because there's certain students that are not allowed to be published.
I always have to get approval on releasing the photos.
Stipple them like that. They do. I'm told I've been doing the fun stuff.
Continuing on, nothing on grants. We will be writing a grant that's due April 10th. More to that, on that when we do it. And then the last thing I wanted to point out, Chris, if you don't mind switching the screen to a map, we recently found out MDOT will be doing 2 bridge rebuild projects, which will have an impact on all of us. At exit 41, Blue Star, will be redecked, rebuilt, replaced, and then at M89, redecked, rebuilt, replaced. And at one point, they will be completely shut down. So we have to figure out how we're gonna navigate some of our areas and go around. And we are working with MDOT, since we have such short notice. It is the beginning date today.
Did you misspoke? You said M89, you mean Blue Star 36?
I'm sorry, there is one at M89, but the one in our area is gonna be Blue
Exit
Star
36.
Next to 36, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 36.
I overread.
And 41, right?
So is that going to both of those interchanges?
They're, from my understanding, they're gonna maintain one lane as long as possible with the traffic lights on either side, but at some point, yes, it will be completely shut down.
Hopefully not.
Just like
both of
Western.
them.
Probably in July, when it's busy,
So Blue Star coming from the south, you won't be able to go over the bridge?
at some point.
Or from the north? That ought to please
I'm
the
gonna get a
local
boat.
merchants.
They're supposed to have more meetings in, like, I can't remember, he sent out a Zoom for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now where they're gonna set a little more hard dates and help pre-plan with the emergency responders.
So we had maybe 4 or 5 days' notice on this.
Yeah.
And we participated on the Zoom, because the meeting was in Muskegon. And the chief up to the north, we had some questions, and they determined they need to have a safety meeting only for safety, public safety. So they asked for a host. They wanted to do it in the area most affected, which is us. So I volunteered at the station. We will be doing a meeting here.
So, the last time we did this, my memory serves me correctly, it's been a while, they didn't really close, they never closed the bridge. They worked on one side and then the other. So, this bridge closure, is it supposed to be for a long period of time, or just?
She indicated 2 weeks when they redeck it.
They're
And the
gonna-
end date for this project is May 24th, 2024.
2024?
I was gonna say,
But it won't be shut down.
and having, whatever
One
period of
lane.
time there's one lane, you might as well have it shut down, because in the summer, that's
yeah.
gonna back up till hell won't have it. It's gonna back up right onto the interstate.
Particularly what's gonna happen if we shut down 196. Year-to-date, 4 times, Eric? 4 times we shut down 196 since January 1st?
Oh, it's more than that.
6?
Could be the biggest tourist boon to New Richmond in its history.
I think 11, last time I counted.
Just to give you an example, what's the amount of traffic, I remember we used the data on Blue Star Highway as 10,000 cars a day. The township requested the project to the north, AutoCamp, do a engineering study. We're up to 16,000 cars per day. Here's, the average is 25,000 cars per day on 196. So when you shut that down for an hour, and shut that down, it's another 1,000 plus cars.
When did you say the end date was again? I'm sorry.
The end date of the project is May 24th, and the lane width will be limited to 11 feet. Some of our trucks are almost 10 feet wide.
Okay. 24th of 24.
Right.
20, that's what I was,
24th.
I was wondering if that, I heard that correctly, okay.
That's the entire project with sealing the concrete,
Okay.
painting, so I anticipate they're gonna obviously be cognizant that they can't just take a bridge out, but
Probably the same people that are doing the rest area that was supposed to be done 2 years ago.
I think it is done, they just don't open it.
They want to, they want to mess it
I
up.
believe Douglas has requested a temporary traffic light and we're vetoed, so I think
I
they're
don't
gonna
think they
put,
even talked about it. They said, oh, we're already gotta do that.
they're gonna put a temporary four-way stop at Wiley and
Good.
Blue Star Highway.
Good. I guess.
We just went through that last time.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
It's hard getting out on Blue Star at that road.
I know, I lived there.
It's terrible, yeah.
Cars everywhere.
It is, but that's especially bad, I have to say.
Yeah, so it's exit 36, and there's another one south, but they refer to that as Ganges.
Both of them.
Well, the locals know how to get around 36
Especially 41.
and 41, but
Wish they would widen up
Seriously.
both of those.
Too many bridges. It's crazy.
All right.
be careful what you wish for.
I skipped one right here, I don't know why I did that, I checked it off. We have resumed community risk reduction CPR classes and AED classes. We have a new instructor to the crew, it's Wendy Bales, and she taught, class, I think, a week ago Saturday, so.
Is that here? That takes place here?
Mhm.
And how do people find out about that? People like me, for example.
I think in the township requested one, I know they're doing one, I think Monday, the police, there's one from Douglas Police,
And then there's another community one next Wednesday that's full already too.
because we had to kind of stop that, we couldn't handle it all. We were doing them every quarter, and we were just, there's too many calls to do it. So now Wendy got her license to do it. We're going under her.
Into the breach.
So Grassley has a big community risk reduction thing going on. You get your blood pressure taken every Wednesday. Can't you stop here anytime and get your blood pressure taken? So you really don't have to run to Grassley to get your blood pressure taken. You can get it taken.
I hope Doug heard that.
I mean, I think it's great that they're doing something for community risk reduction, but I think we also have community risk reduction, and maybe we should put that on our website, that you can get your blood pressure checked here anytime.
That's a good idea.
You think you need it. Or you could put it on the sign.
I wanted to put it on the sign, I was just trying to be creative so it looks better than theirs.
Sorry to put the word free.
You guys are so competitive.
Jeez, come on.
Gonna say, be careful what you wish for again.
Yeah.
People have a line of cars
Yeah.
waiting for,
Yeah, all the Nebraska people will be coming here every other day of the week.
tell them to go to family fair.
I had something else I want to share, Ken. So, when we went to the pre-alert policy with 911, all we want is, hey, you've got a medical, dispatch us. Don't wait to go through, well, what'd you have to eat, when did you go to the bathroom last? This whole EMD process, it took us 10 years to achieve that, you all know that. When we were looking at the policies, can you grab the fire policies in my office? When we're looking at the policies, which are required to be reviewed annually by Allegan Central, most of them were around 2001, 2002. Very, not relevant. So we ended up with looking at these policies, calling it out, can't find it, huh? Oh, they're gone. So anyway, we looked at the policies and we asked Central, how are you gonna do this? So they gave us 17 policies to revise for the fire service. Well, they're all scanned, we had to convert them, and so that committee, that's done. So the dispatch policies, the 17 policies, wires down, fire, carbon monoxide, all have policies. county has to work that way in the dispatchers. So they reference fire dispatch cards, like they have emergency medical dispatch cards. But medical is in the system, in the CAD system. For fire, this is what's used. This. So I asked for permission to review with the committee and redline this to make it a little more relevant. Like, I think something's burning, there's smoke, hold on, call the fire department. Well, what's burning, what color is it, what part of the room is it in? Those are the problems we've had with this. You know it's either a medical or a fire to get us out the door. We don't need licensed sirens, so that's what we're working on to achieve. And with the pre-alert, we cut 50% off of our process time. That's big time. So we're gonna work on this, and I asked the dispatch director, well, you know, hey, can I ask why this isn't electronic other than money? And it was money. So we're gonna work on revising this, but I was surprised at this antiquated way of dispatching us on a fire.
I'm pretty sure if you needed like to get another plastic page to go in there, you'd be completely out of luck.
Yeah, there it is.
Surprised on that. That's all I have. Sheriff's side.
Interesting. I'm kind of surprised about that myself, being on the 911.
You're on the 911 board, we'd like you to change that, so.
See what I can do for you. And how much could it possibly cost, and,
I think they were talking over 50,000 a year.
but why isn't it done? All right, moving on. Nothing about grants. We have no unfinished business. We have new business, harbor entrance dredging.
So I got a call from Daniel from the township on the harbor, and he asked if I could assemble the drone team and do aerial footage of the harbor entrance, because it's shoaled in very serious. They sent me some photos of it, so I was working on that, and scheduling in the wintertime was tough, and there was a deadline because they had to go to legislators to get funding for this, an emergency funding from the Army Corps to dredge it. And we had a 2-week time frame, and after about 10 days, they got approval, emergency approval to dredge it by the Corps. So we didn't have to do that, but some people have been monitoring the harbor entrance, and it doesn't even sound like some of us can get in or out until it's dredged.
The boaters.
That's only the rich people with the big boats that can't get in on wheelchair.
Yeah, really. That's a shame.
Oh, wait.
Sorry. No respect. Okay, moving on.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
So are we doing the drones for the harbor entrance?
We don't have to.
We don't, okay. we
Yeah,
don't have to
sorry,
do that.
we don't
Okay.
have to do the drone because they got the funding approval.
Okay, gotcha, all right.
Daniel took.
Thanks to the
Okay.
managers and all that, and Daniel was a big part of it too.
Mhm.
Daniel to the rescue. Okay, we have no correspondence, we probably still don't have any public comment. I would like to make a comment about the ambulance committee and what we're doing. Actually, we're waiting for an answer from AMR. The next step that the committee wants to take, it hasn't met since our last meeting, but the next step they want to take is to discuss with AMR and life their plans for the future, so that we can fit in with those plans for the future. And Life sort of answered the question today, but not really. They didn't tell us when they could meet, did they? Did they tell us if they could meet?
No response on when they were going to meet with the committee.
And we have had no response from AMR at all, which makes it really difficult to know next steps, because we just don't know what their plans are, and I doubt that they know what their plans are. But there is a difficulty with ambulance service in the area, and we're working on it, and not really sure where the committee will go next. I know we wanted to set up, legal, a section of the committee, we're doing this in sections, we'll set up a legal section, but it's kind of hard to set up the legal part before we know what AMR and Life
Well, I
are
don't
gonna
know.
do.
I mean, I think part of the weirdness about the responsiveness from those ambulance companies is they don't have other than the small area of the township, they don't have a contract with anybody to do what they do. So if you don't have a contract with somebody, nobody's got a stick. I mean, you don't even have to answer the damn phones. So that's I take issue. I think the legal part, which I don't think, could be wrong, I've been wrong before, I don't think is going to require that much brain power or energy or time on the part of the fire district's attorney or whatever to determine what's the deal, who's responsible. And I think, based on the contract that they do have with the part of the township near Fenville or whatever it is, between Life and the township, the responsibility for ambulance service rests with the jurisdictions, not the fire district.
Right.
Although if you ask 100 people in this area, they're gonna say, it's our responsibility, and we've got ambulances right downstairs here, right?
That's what they'll say.
So, disabusing the world of that notion is, in my mind, part of this. But more important, I think ideally I don't think Douglas, and I can almost assure you Saugatuck, and I doubt the township, wants to be contracting out the ambulance services themselves directly. They've got no professional experience, I can't imagine. But regardless, it's their call. And that needs to get educated within those three jurisdictions so that if we want to, which certainly seems to make sense, create a situation where we develop an intergovernmental agreement between those three jurisdictions and the fire district to have fire district take that responsibility. That's a critical next step, so that at that point, then the fire district can communicate with these people and, literally either authorize them or disauthorize them from functioning here. And create a system where, where the fees and the mileage costs and all the rest of that is clear as can be, open book, reviewed every X number of months or years, whatever it is. But as it is right now, there's no accountability on that front. It's certain, and people would think it falls to us, but it doesn't fall to us just because they've got red lights and we got red lights. So that's why I'd say we should get I said to Greg this afternoon, my view of that jurisdictional / legal part of this effort is probably a 2-meeting deal. I don't think that subcommittee or working group or whatever we call it is going to exist for very long. It's just that it's literally fact-finding.
Right.
And then laying that out for the jurisdictions so they can make the choices that they need to make.
I think you gotta figure out what we have in place now.
We don't have
Yeah,
anything,
there's
we don't have anything in place.
Well, then we don't have to worry about anything, stepping on anyone's toes. I thought the township has always signed an agreement with AMR for coverage. And Life had something down south. And that was a
You have a contract with
Oh,
them?
no.
I thought
I don't think we have a contract, do we?
I always thought they had a contract.
I communicated directly leading up to this with what's the lady's name at AMR who's running that?
Alex.
Alex. And she wasn't being rude, she was being perfectly accurate and very brief. We have no agreements with anyone, period.
Well, then I don't see why we're gonna be worried about this.
Well, because I think it's partly because the impression amongst the public is that it is our job, that we are the community, that we are the public safety people, and we need to be able to get a firm fix and then go to the jurisdictions and either have them, because I'm sure none of them, certainly Saugatuck City, hasn't given 15 seconds of thought to ambulance service being run by Saugatuck City. It never even occurred to them. They just assume it's us. So we need to disabuse them of that notion and have them either choose to go make contracts with AMR or whoever you want, or turn that responsibility over to us and let the fire district do it. And
If
ideally, all three of them together make the same decision.
If everyone in the area thinks that the fire department's job is, ambulance service, they are assuming, because they pay taxes, that it's done automatically.
Yeah.
AMR and Life are both for-profit,
Exactly.
so we need to understand if we're gonna take on that responsibility, are we gonna be for-profit? I don't think we can be.
No.
Could be a huge cost saving for someone that needs ambulance service here, except it's gonna come on their tax bill,
Well,
which they already think they're paying.
Or some part of it, this discussions about basic life support, which could be a non-cost item conceivably. But it's not, my difficulty, it's not sorted. There's no sense or rhyme or reason to what's out there right now, and something that's really important.
Well, I think there has to be some kind of intergovernmental agreement. If we are going to be the person that runs ambulance service, then there needs to be an intergovernmental
And
agreement
we
by
need
the
to-
three communities.
And we need to go to the voters, even if we weren't going to create capital assets, just to manage it.
Right.
We should be going to the voters to seek the money to do that,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's not in our budget, and it's not in the money we're collecting now.
I guess my question is, why is there AMR running throughout Holland? Is that something AMR says, this is our area?
Oh, yeah.
Is there competition there? How come there's not Life in Holland? How come this is all by regions?
I asked Alex that from AMR, and she said it's been a history and a pattern of an agreement between the jurisdiction and the provider, AMR or Life or Private
Right.
Care, whomever. And I guess AMR is in the area, so the jurisdiction says, yeah, we're gonna have AMR. Now when you have Life that's moved up from the south to the north to take over like the southern area, probably wouldn't break their hearts if they went all the way to Holland, took everything up to that.
I guess I don't understand
But
how
they
this
tend to
works.
be jurisdictional. What Alex said is, it is definitely a mutual agreement between the jurisdictional, the city, and a provider. They can probably work out an agreement with Life. What Alex essentially said, Dan, correct me, step in here if you want. She said, we would love to have an agreement with Saugatuck, let's just say Saugatuck. We'd love to have an agreement with Saugatuck. We do not have an agreement with Saugatuck area. We would love to. At that time, you can tell us what response times do you expect, and you're gonna pay for any agreement. That's the difference, and that's where Dan and Eric hit it. They are for-profit agencies, nothing wrong with that. There's a time to hire a third-party contractor. What we see evidence is, and have experienced, is they're getting more and more taxed, or demands are exceeding the resource capabilities. That's how this all started. So no one can really complain because they waited 40 minutes for an ambulance. You don't have an agreement.
And this never came to a head before, because now it's gonna get expensive, because we're gonna have to sign agreements with these agencies and probably pay for them. And it hasn't been a problem up to now. It's been handshake agreements, that kind of thing. Now it's a problem, or it's a growing problem. Response times are getting longer. Sometimes they don't respond. So, and you have to wait so long before you can get the other agency to respond. So it's a difficult problem, and it's gonna be one that voters are gonna have to vote on, because it's gonna be an expensive problem to solve. So that's what we're trying to do right now.
You're right, the only people who know, in my mind, most of you, people who know that it's gonna come out of their personal pocket to ride in that ambulance, have ridden in those ambulances once. I haven't. So, that would come, were I not on this board, that would come as something of a shock to me to get a $6,000 bill for a trip to Holland or whatever.
That's right, and that's,
But that's only me, and there's, whatever, 9,000 or 10,000 other people here who just think there's an ambulance waiting for them out there right downstairs. We got 'em.
and it doesn't cost anything to
And it
us.
doesn't, and they're free, yeah.
So I met with Chief Gamby, Park Township, Friday and Saturday. I was with him. And I was on a marine project, because they're building a marine division. And I was on there Friday afternoon, and he ran out for a medical call. He came back and he goes, oh, we're not even supposed to do that, a medical call. And we have a lot of people during the day. And I said, well, don't you have Ottawa County Sheriff? They have those C units, there's a paramedic and a sheriff in a unit, and he'll run, which is kind of a cool concept. But he says, more and more, we're running the medical calls, and there's a millage for that, and they still can't provide it. Why? They can't keep up with the call volume. So there's a situation, because that was talked about here. Why don't we have like one paramedic, okay, send them here, and then send them here, and then send them there. And that's what Ottawa has. E-units, paramedic, sheriff. And he said more and more they're absorbing these calls, and what he didn't like about it is there's a millage for that, it's not happening. The fire department's absorbing it. It's kind of an interesting analogy. That's pretty close, Tom.
He's kind of in a bastard area there too, because most of it's Allegan County, a little sliver of Ottawa there. So I can see why Ottawa County doesn't send police out there.
Right. So it's kind of a trend which you see what's happening, and you try to get out ahead of it to say, well, what are our options? Putting life or AMR here, I don't think anybody can afford to do that. And again, my contention is, why are we sending paramedics to some of these calls? You don't need a paramedic for these calls.
Well, what if we would ask Life, what's it gonna cost us? Or ask EMR, what is it gonna cost us to put one of your ambulances here full-time?
We know that.
We do.
One ambulance in Saugatuck, we have to house the ambulance and the staff.
There's the issue.
That dorm room
Yeah.
is co-ed.
Couple
Life
of
doesn't do co-ed. For that, you will pay $750,000 per year.
Well,
The
see, now,
township gave it to us.
now, to me, that is a phenomenal number to have, to bring to the public and say, do you want to pay for this? Because you're going to. And $750 isn't housing them.
Yeah, you have
Is
to
it?
build,
It's build a house, or find
Well,
one.
We gotta
which is
change the dorm room.
yeah, we have to
And then-
build dorm rooms.
Right, so you're talking, or does it make more sense for us to do it?
But the township.
You tell us what.
They were way ahead of this. They got they call them 4 evaluations. One of them was, and Jane was the one who gave me this idea, we have EMTs, they have short staffing, they've got an ambulance and a paramedic, let's give them one of our EMTs. 24 hours a day, we give them an EMT, okay? For that was $350,000 to $400,000 per year. Keep this in mind, when you pay the $750,000 for the Saugatuck ambulance,
It can go in.
you don't own them.
Sounds like
It's kind of like the sheriff.
the sheriff and,
They're going wherever they're called to.
And that does not necessarily mean those rides, trips would be without cost.
Oh, no,
Could
they
be.
still cost.
No, that's just to keep them here.
It's just to put them.
You see where we're going?
well, I know where we're going.
But that's,
We need to go there.
That's why I want to get this jurisdictional thing started, because it's fundamental to the next steps that are inevitable.
We're talking big money on this. And then, and there were 4 evolutions. One was a $750,000, one was 354. And Chris was told $750,000 probably 7-8 months ago.
Yeah, they're close to a year by now, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
more.
So those are preposterous numbers. And that's how we kind of, oh gosh, if you're gonna charge that, I could buy 2 used ambulances for, let's just say $100,000 each, and do this a whole lot better, maybe get 2 more EMTs, I don't know. But to me, it was worth looking into, and that's how this evolved into these discussions. But Life tends to be, well, all right, one ambulance company is $1,600, one's $795.
For the same trip.
One's $32 a loaded mile, one's $16 a loaded mile. Do any of you know that?
I'll walk before I'll ride in an ambulance.
Those are the things that, and as Mike Betts, whose wife is a paramedic, these are for-profit companies.
And.
We aren't
And
for-profit.
there's no government agreement that allows you to weigh in on that.
That's why I thought
Stupidity.
it was a good investment to consider if the taxpayers want, good investment for the taxpayer to consider, let's have the fire department do it. We're there anyway. You already paid us to go there. We're already there. We don't want to be in the transport business, but we want for those situations where there's no medic available, no ambulance available within a certain time frame, 20 minutes is in the protocol.
I guess unfortunately, us sitting here are hearing some of these facts, understanding common sense. It's the armchair quarterback that's sitting at home and doesn't do a damn thing except bitch about how much his taxes are, that doesn't understand this stuff.
Right.
And that's what we need to do as a committee, is to make it understandable for that one person that's gonna piss and moan about
That was my
it.
exact goal when we started this, is to make
Yeah.
this understandable to Joe citizen. This, I mean.
You're
this is-
nicer than I am.
This is just really, really difficult, because it's gonna be really, really expensive. And the other thing is, we don't have enough staff to start with. Can we find the staff to do this? Greg says yes. I'm a little leery. And if we start this, I have a feeling we'll be doing more and more and more, because everything seems to grow. Everything we pick up, like MDOT doesn't even show up on the highway anymore, we do it. And so there's one more thing for us to do. And can we get enough staff to do this?
Well, as I say, if it gets to the point of going to the voters, conceivably presenting them with 2 options, or even 3 options, God help us.
But you can't vote on 3 options, you have to vote on one thing.
Then vote on the one thing, and if they authorize it, then at least there's an element of learning out there that'll be real. I mean, that they will be voting on and understanding the private ambulance coverage, the whole deal, to the extent that, I mean, as I say, given that, nobody knows anything.
And I want to give people options. It's always, I'm right and you're wrong. I want them to understand that there's a whole plethora of things that we can do that will make sense, but will cost this, and this. And then that all has to boil down to one ballot question. So that's the hard part.
And the ballot question's gonna be about money. Plain and simple.
Oh, absolutely.
We're kind of in the educational, informational stage, and you look at some of these, and it was great that Life provided those via the township. And I just think there's ways to look at this and then just kind of filter on, well, what's the goal, what's the objective? There are reasons that communities our size, even with 20,000 people in the summer, there's reasons that ALS is not in the area. There isn't the call volume to sustain that. You have a paramedic in Saugatuck, ask Dr. Black, ask Dr. Miller. They start losing their skills. because they're not practicing paramedicine. And that was a big thing that Blatt brought up. You know, all right, so, what is it, 60% of our calls are medical. We do 1,000, so 600 calls. How many of those are ones? Well, that's in the data, 175. So there's some ways to look at this analytically. Well, one heart attack can make change, or, you know, so it really boils down to, as you all have said, what do the taxpayers want us to do? I think it's worth looking at, considering. You've got two obstacles, obviously. How can we fund it? Number two, something has to be done about the dorm room. We're maxed now. How are we gonna do more people? So those are things you look at. Those are costs. But I think that it certainly is feasible to look at it, and it would make sense to look at it. And then come to a conclusion, no, I'm not ready to do it yet, or let's not do it. But you can't control, even with the agreement, you can only control those private companies so much. And I think it's, when you see and you hear the mass exodus of paramedics, that it's going to get worse.
The only way you can keep them is pay them more.
They're all stealing other ones.
Right.
Oh, God, yeah.
Just like the fire service, a lot of the full-time people, hey, I can get 60% of my MERS in Muskegon, I'm going there.
Can we move forward on
Oh, sorry.
naming that working group on jurisdiction/legal, so that we can get a meeting of that group before the next meeting of this group?
Okay, I'll start working on that, because we need a representative from every community. So you guys decide who you want to represent you on the next leg of this. But I think it'll have to be somebody from Douglas, somebody from the township, somebody from Saugatuck. And then Greg and I are trying to stay involved in all the committees so that we have some continuity. And Greg and I can ask our legal what they think about where we're going with this and the best possible.
I think
Do you
that
mean
might be
one of
the-
us, or do you mean another citizen?
How are you?
Somebody connected with government, either somebody on your council, maybe Rich, maybe whoever.
Okay.
But it should be somebody in your governmental
I
circle.
think it'd be helpful to have it be someone representing those jurisdictions in this group.
Right.
Because there's a lot of
Right.
backstory and just general knowledge that's helpful. And
I do
you
too.
really don't want to start over with somebody.
So it could be you. You might want to bring Rich with you so that he knows what's going on, because I was going to go try to meet with him today, but I didn't.
When's the next meeting?
Our-
Group isn't even set up, so.
No, we don't have a group yet, so I'm not
It's
sure.
just working group.
That's to be announced, right?
Yeah,
To be-
yeah.
To be determined?
I'll happily do it for Saugatuck.
Does this group have a name?
I'm sorry?
Does it have a name?
We'll figure
Okay.
one out.
It's been an
Whatever we put down will
A
change.
team
it,
handshake,
so.
or? Okay.
But it has
To
to
work
be
on safer.
an intergovernmental agreement at this point. So we need buy-in from all three jurisdictions. So,
Kind of like the fire district system,
It is,
an EMS district.
exactly right. Managed by the fire district or whatever.
yeah. I think the group has been called the EMS Ad Hoc Committee for right.
Right.
And there are people on it from Douglas,
EMS ad hoc planning committee.
Yeah,
And I
this
think
would-
John
This would be
Williams-
that slash legal. so this is
Isn't
what
John
it's-
Williams from Douglas?
No, East Township,
Is it, I thought somebody from
It's
Douglas.
Dee Dee, she's from,
Oh, Dee Dee Dupree is from Douglas. Who?
right. Dee Dee Dupree, Dee Dee,
And she's a doctor.
Have you met many times, or just?
Twice.
Twice, okay. And who's on from the township? Daniel, or has he been attending, or nobody?
No, John Williams, who's a doctor from the township, is on it.
David Blatt.
And David Blatt.
Okay. But
Right
you
now,
want
right
a
now,
board
it's been a
member.
group of doctors, we were getting their input.
Okay.
Now we're gonna get legal's input.
Yeah, I think the next step is to get legal, and then we move on to the next step.
So it's kind of an evolving, the committee is formed of people that we get information from.
Perfect.
So which of the two township representatives seated to my right wants to be on the seat?
Neither.
Don't answer at once. Answer simultaneously.
We'll see. Stacy and I will talk about it.
We'll talk about the code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, where most of the world gets done.
We'll figure it out there.
Well, at least it's not the corner there, so.
Yeah. We're discreet.
Okay, board comments, Stacy?
No, we're moving along on our remodel project. Have you been over there to see?
God, no.
Big mess, but it's coming along, so I guess that's all we've got, I've got.
That's your
About
fire
Eric.
truck, right? About 800 and some thousand, right?
Dan, you
Yeah,
got
right.
anything? Do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Kathy? All right,
I'll make a motion.
all right,
I'll support that.
all right, we're out of here.